All right, so welcome to, I guess, part two of the Thanksgiving classes. Although tonight is not really so connected to what we discussed last night, although it's keeping within the theme of Hakaras Hatov. And today is a day where Jews and Gentiles alike all over the United States are taking time to recognize the good that we have in our lives. I was actually just listening today to Rabbi Schechter, who was talking about that it's a very positive thing to have a Thanksgiving meal. That lehefech, he thought that for sure that it'd be a very good thing, a good practice to take on, to have a Thanksgiving meal, to get together and say what you're thankful for. Obviously, this year we can't get together in the same way that one would normally, but still, taking time to recognize all of the goodness that Hashem does for us is no question always a positive thing. And it's one of the basic tenets of Judaism. In fact, we know the Gemara Megillah says that is why we are called Yehudim. Says the Gemara, "My karle Yehudi." Why was Mordechai referred to as Yehudi, the Jew? So says the Gemara, "Al shum shekafar ba'avodah zarah," because he rejected idolatry. Shekola kofer ba'avodah zarah nikra Yehudi. Anyone that rejects other deities is called a Jew, meaning that you recognize that everything in your life comes from Hashem. That's what the word Yehuda means. It comes from Hodaya. It's from this week's Parsha, from our Parsha this week. The Torah tells us in the end of Perek Chaf Tes in Sefer Bereshis, in our Parsha, Parshas Vayetze. The Torah says, "V'tahar od vateled ben," that Leah had already given birth to 3 sons, and then she was impregnated again, and she had another baby boy, Vatomer, and she said, "Hapam odas Hashem." Now I'm going to thank Hashem. Al kain kara shemo Yehuda, and it's for this reason that his name was given Yehuda. V'ta'amod miledes. She got up from the birthing. So you see that Yehuda, that we carry the name as Yehudim, is from the fact that Leah had this immense sense of Hakaras Hatov for Hashem, that she gave her son the name to be thankful. So you have to ask the question, though, on this pasuk and this whole episode with Leah, that which she did not have Hakaras Hatov for the first of her children that were born. I mean, she knows that her sister is having a very hard time having birth. So, I mean, every time that she has a child, so every name should be given as Yehuda. But we know that the first child's name is Shimon, and then the next child is Reuven, and then Shimon, and then Levi, and then we learn about Yehuda. What happened now that she became all of a sudden full of the sense of Hakaras Hatov? So Rashi tells us exactly what happened. That the imahos, Rashi tells us a little bit earlier that the imahos had nevuah, had prophecy, and through prophecy they knew that there were to be 12 shvatim, there were to be 12 tribes of Israel, and if that's the case, being that Yaakov Avinu had 4 wives, so then just higher mathematics would say that each of the 4 wives should carry 3 of the shvatim. Once it came to be that Leah now had a 4th son, that was above and beyond everything else. Says Rashi, Shitalati Yoser Mechelki, that I already took more than my allotment. Ma'ata Yeshli Lahodos. Now I have to stop and be thankful. Meaning the following: being that it was already set into motion that there were to be 12 shvatim, so according to the teva, according to just the basic way that things should have worked, it would have made sense for Leah to have 3 children. That is Leah basically saying, okay, this is predestined, it's predetermined, having my 3 boys until now, all of that was already set up in advance. But now this is above nature. This is above and beyond. Ma'ati yeshli lahodos. Now I have to stop and be thankful. When you take into account the entire picture, your sense of gratitude becomes different. Now, Rabbi Schechter likes to say that why is it so important for us as Jews to have hakaras hatov and to carry hakaras hatov for one another? What is it that let's say I gain when someone recognizes goodness that I've done for them. Now, of course, if they tell me, I'll feel very good about myself. It might encourage me to do more. But if they themselves just carry in their hearts that, oh wow, Daniel Reich really did something nice for me, but I have no clue. I had no clue that I did something nice for them. But they carry this sense of hakaras hatov with them. What does that help with? Why is that important for them to have? So Rabbi Schechter says that ultimately, the one of the main reasons why we need to carry hakaras hatov for one another is because if we have hakaras hatov for one another, so then that is us constantly being in training to ultimately recognize good that we have in our lives in general. And the more that we recognize the good we have in our lives, the more we bring God into our lives. Because we know that we have a kel hamisnaster, that we have a hidden God, that he is in tzimtzum. He is not revealed in the sense that it is hard to always, it's impossible to see him. He's invisible. But what we do have is the ability to recognize all of the goodness he does for us. Every time we recognize that, we make God more tangible in our lives. We're keeping alive emunah. Hakaras hatov, basically, Rav Schechter is saying, is the ultimate recipe to have emunah. If you want to receive emunah in life, you want to have proper faith, so you need to start opening your eyes to recognizing all the good you have, which, by the way, Hanukkah is such a great example of that by both rabbinic holidays, Hanukkah and Purim. Hanukkah is a great example of this. There's a famous question, probably the most famous question, a question that many of you I'm sure have heard in the past. So bear with me for repeating the question, but there's a very famous question that is asked by the Beis Yosef. The Beis Yosef, Rabbi Yosef Karo, 16th century, asks, he says, why is Hanukkah 8 days long? By the way, he was not the first person to ask this question. Most don't quote it from an even earlier source, but there was an even earlier source to this question that the Beis Yosef actually did not have access to. So he was creative to ask this question, but this question had already been asked unbeknownst to him by the Tosos Harosh, by Rabbeinu Asher, in his students' notes on his Torah lectures, that the students of the Rush of Rabbeinu Asher from Frankfurt and then Toledo kept notes of Rabbeinu Asher's Talmudic teachings and discourses, and in those notes, the question is asked: why is Hanukkah for 8 days? In reality, it should only be for 7 days. Why? Because we know Hanukkah's 8 days because there was a miracle that happened that after the Jews won the war, so they went to go light the menorah in the Beis Hamikdash, and they only had one jug of oil to last only 1 day, and the miracle happened that the jug lasted for 8 days, and the menorah stayed lit for 8 days until they had enough time to get more of the pure oil. So then the question is asked, why then is Hanukkah for 8 days? There was enough for 1 day. That first day is not a miracle. There was enough for 1 day. Hanukkah should only be 7 days. It was a 7-day miracle, not an 8-day miracle. So there's a number of different answers. I have a sefer here in the house that I think has about 100 answers to the question. The Beis Yosef himself, I think, gives 3 answers. that basically one of the answers he gives is that when they went into the Beis Hamikdash each day, the oil level did not drop at all. So even on the first day, right, it should have dropped at least somewhat, but it didn't drop. The oil level stayed the same, which that was, so already on the first day, there was a miracle that was happening. So there's a number of fantastic answers to the question. There's a sefer that has 100 answers. There's another sefer called something like Ner Lameya or something like that I think has 500 answers to the famous Beis Yosef's question. God willing, when I come across the sefer that has 1,000 answers, I'll be sure to let you know. But the question is, well, then why is Hanukkah for 8 days and not 7? But maybe it's not even a question at all. Maybe the whole question is a bad question. Why? Because the premise of the question is assuming that the first day wasn't a miracle. The fact that there was oil to last 1 day is not a miracle. You know what? That is a miracle. Who's to say that oil should burn? If you were to put water inside the menorah and put a wick inside the water menorah, would it burn? No. If you were to use soda pop to burn the wick, would it burn? No. Oil burns. Who says that is not straight from HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Who says that it's not something to recognize? The fact that oil burns. This is, I think, what Leah is teaching, to have this kind of like full perspective in Hakaras HaTov, that you can't look at something just so finite and in such a narrow scope, but that you have to expand your Hakaras HaTov, put the full picture into account, to really say a proper thank you. Purim, as I mentioned, of course, is the Thanksgiving in either February or March. That is the Judaism's Thanksgiving, the Torah's Thanksgiving, rabbinic Thanksgiving is Purim, where Purim is the holiday where we really recognize HaKadosh Baruch Hu's hand in everything. In fact, this actually comes up in halacha as well. Take a look at the Shulchan Aruch right over here on the screen in source number 1. Minhag Kol Yisrael, the minhag of all Yisrael is shehakore kore uposhta ki igeres, that when the person who reads the Megillah is about to begin, they open the entire scroll. They roll out the whole thing. You ever notice that on the bimba before, you don't read it, like the way we read a Sefer Torah. We roll out the entire Megillah before we start, and then we fold it under each time. But the whole thing is rolled out beforehand. La Ros Hanes. Why, says the Shulchan Aruch? In order to display the miracle. And then when you're done with the Torah, with the Megillah reading, then you wrap up the Megillah at the end. But the Shulchan Aruch saying the purpose we roll out the whole Sefer is to display the miracle. What does that mean? So said Rabbi Asher Weiss, the Rabbi Asher Weiss said that when you roll out the whole scroll, that's supposed to represent that you have to look at the whole story. That when you look at the whole story, you become overwhelmed with the recognition of God's hand in everything. When you look at the full picture, you become oversensed with Hakaras HaTov. And that's what the Gemara says over here. That's why there's no halal on Purim, because kriyasa zu halila, the reading of the Megillah itself is the halal, because when you finish reading the halal, you can't help but recognize that it all comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In fact, this these two aspects of Hakaras HaTov. Number one, having Hakaras HaTov for HaKadosh Baruch Hu for every single aspect of our lives, that ultimately HaKadosh Baruch Hu is running everything. And this other aspect that we mentioned earlier, that we have to have Hakaras HaTov for individuals, because that ultimately leads us to having Hakaras HaTov for Hashem. So the Gemara in Psachim discusses the text of Nishmas, that we say Nishmas every single Shabbos. that Nishmas is, as the Gemara in the end of Psachim refers to it as, the Halal Hagadol. It's the large Halal. The ultimate praise of God is the praise of Nishmas that we say every single Shabbos. And in Nishmas, there's a line in Nishmas where we say, Hamehulal berov hatishbachos. Now that's the nusach of Ashkenaz, that Hamuhula berov hatishbachos. So the Gemara has a discussion about whether or not the proper language, the proper liturgy is berov hatishbachos. Most of the praise goes to God. I mean, only most of the praise. All the praise should go to God. So in fact, the Rif and the Sephardic Rishonim have a different girsa in the Gemara, that it's not berov hatishbachos, but it's kol hatishbachos. All of the praises go to God. So Rabbi Shechter thought that the Ashkenaz nusach of saying rov hatishbachos works. It fits in line because, yes, you ultimately you have to get to a place of recognizing that everything comes from God, but you need to leave space in order to get there. That if you recognize that so and so helped me out with this, and I'm so thankful that for my doctor that provided a good medicine, and I'm so thankful for the clerk at the store that did such a good job, an efficient job in bagging my groceries, and I'm so thankful to the postman for in rain or shine comes and delivers the important mail to my door. And I have that kind of general sense of tishbachos, of giving praise to people, and I'm a gracious person. So then ultimately I'm going to get to the place where I recognize, wow, I can't believe that oil burns. What an amazing miracle. That when you leave that kind, when you have that kind of perspective where you're looking at everything in life, you look at what individuals do, you look at what just other people in your life do, and then ultimately it ends up becoming, I now am able to recognize everything that Hashem does. That is ultimate Hakar Stov. And in fact, the Abu Dram was a mid-14th century Sephardic Rishon. In fact, the Abu Dram, we quoted the Rush before. So the Rush's son, his name is the Tur. His name is Yaakov. His name's not the Tur. His mother didn't call him Tur. He wrote a sefer called the Arba Turim, and the Tur went with his father in. Let me get my dates straight in my head. So the Rush lived the last 26 years of his life in Toledo, Spain. In 1301, he went from Ashkenaz to Spain, to Toledo, and he lived there till he passed away. He passed away around the age of 70, 75 in Toledo, Spain in 1327. So the Tur, who was his son, I think passed away in the middle of the 14th century. The Abu Dram was, I think, 1 year younger than the Tur. 1 year younger than the Tur. But the Tur writes that when he came to Toledo, his Rebbe became the Abu Dram. So even though the Tur was technically a little bit older than the Abu Dram, he looked at him completely as his Rebbe. The Abu Dram is a beautiful sefer. I have it sitting right over here. The Abu Dram is a beautiful sefer on the siddur and on the laws of davening. The beautiful sefer. He goes through every single. You see, Shachar Shalchol. He goes through every single tefillah, giving explanation, halacha. It's a fantastic work. So the Abu Dram explains that in the repetition of the Amida, we listen to the Chazan repeat the Shmona Esrei, and in his repetition of the Shmona Esrei, so we listen intently, we answer Amen to every bracha. In fact, the Rambam says that it is not just repeating for people that are not familiar with Shmona Esrei in order so that they could fulfill their mitzvah. But the Rambam says that it's actually a tfilas hatzibor. It is the prayer of the congregation. That is, it is the communal prayer when the cantor is repeating the Amida. There's one bracha, though, that we don't rely on the Shliach Tzibor to say, that we say our own version of, even during the repetition. and that is the Thanksgiving blessing. Hakar Satov, Modim. Says the Abu Dram the following: when the Shliach Tzibor when the Shliach Tzibor gets up to Modim and bows, Kol Ha'am Shochin ve'omrim Hoda Kitana. We also at that moment say our own small Thanksgiving blessing. Hametchilas kemo b'modim, kemo kem b'modim. The same type of prayer that we say during the silent Shemona Esrei. It's a little bit different language, but we don't rely on the Shliach Tzibur to say modim, to say the Thanksgiving blessing on our behalf. We say it ourselves. Why? None of the other blessings we do our own during the repetition. Only modim. Says the Abu Dram, she'ein derech ha'eved lachodos l'rabo, because the way that a servant gives thanks to his master is not by saying v'lomer lo Adoni ata al yedei shliach. Adoni ata al yedei shliach. No one sends a messenger over to the master to let the master know how grateful they are to them. No one does it. When you want to give Hakar Satov, you do it yourself. There's no such thing as having a shliach, having an agent, have a messenger, send that kind of a message. You want to say thank you yourself. But the Abu Dram takes it a step further, because when a person has true Hakar Satov, when they take the full picture into the account, when they recognize all the goodness that every individual does for them, when they recognize all the goodness that they have, all the bounty that they have, all the small things HaKadosh Baruch Hu does to keep the world moving, that provides for us, the fact that we get to live in a country with religious freedom, the fact that we have Eretz Yisrael, the fact that we have Yerushalayim, the fact that we have all these amazing things in our lives, when you recognize that, you become overwhelmed with Kabbalah's Ol Malchus Shamayim. You become a committed Jew at that moment. When you recognize how much HaKadosh Baruch Hu was giving to you, you can't help but say, okay, I got to give something back. So you can't have modim be said by a messenger. You can't have that kind of a message sent by someone else. You have to give it yourself. When I send a messenger to say modim on my behalf, to go through this process of recognizing how much we are indebted to God and how committed we are in turn to Him due to everything He does for us, it's never going to happen if I send someone else to send the message. It's only going to happen if I send the message. So it's a 3-step process. I need to be a person that recognizes all the good that is done for me in my life by other people, because in turn, that is going to teach me, it's going to train me, it's going to condition me towards having proper Hakar Satov for Hashem. Recognize everything God does for me in my life. I'm getting a fuller picture now. And then ultimately, I'm going to recognize that even the things that seem to be just quote unquote normal or by nature, that too is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's gift to the world, allowing nature to run its course. When I have that kind of recognition, step 3, I become overwhelmed with a sense of commitment to God. And at that moment, I am His humble servant and He is my master, which is why we don't rely on anyone else to send the message on our behalf. I wanted to just close. We gave a little teaser last night about eating turkey. Today is a day where a lot of people ate turkey. Happens to be that I was speaking to someone today, and they told me that they're not having a big Thanksgiving meal this year due to COVID. So they picked up some sliced turkey from Ralph's, and that was how they fulfill. So I told them, I said you could be yotze your mitzvah of achilas turkey on Thanksgiving with sliced turkey. Due to COVID, it's okay to rely on the b'diavad of having sliced turkey. So we and it's not just on Thanksgiving. People eat turkey during the year. One of my daughter's favorite meals is a turkey sandwich. She loves to eat a turkey sandwich on a pita bread. So it's a funny thing though. The Darkei Chiva. The Darkei Chiva was a Munkacher chassid who collected a number of different chuvas, the contemporary opinions of his time. So he was living in the time of Reb Chaim Brisker. He didn't live, so long ago. He lived in the last 200 years. And he collects all of the different opinions of all the contemporary issues. And one of the contemporary issues of the time was whether or not turkey was kosher. Why? Because, what makes a kosher bird? So when it comes to an animal, we know that if it chews its cud and it has split hooves, those are the signs for an animal. What are the signs for a fish that has fins and scales? What are the signs for fowl? So the Torah doesn't give any signs for fowl. The Torah just tells us which birds you are not allowed to eat. It doesn't tell us which birds you are allowed to eat. It doesn't tell us signs to know what kind. And the reason is because the overwhelming majority of birds are, at least this is the way the Rabbi Shafter said, there's so many birds that are kosher. So better to just tell me which birds are not kosher. And then whichever one don't fit into that category, you know that they're kosher. So turkey is not on the list in the Torah. However, the Mishnah does say that there is there are signs that we have from our Torah Sheba'al Peh, from our oral tradition. There are signs to know what type of a bird is a kosher bird. Those signs include whether or not the bird is a predator, whether or not it has a certain type of way it walks. It has to walk in a certain type of way. One of the signs is that it needs to have a peelable gizzard. I don't know what a gizzard is. I think it's some gland in the bird that needs to be peelable. There's some signs that the Mishnah gives. Rashi on Rashi though says that there is an additional condition that needs to be met, that the bird needs to have a Masorah. It needs to have a tradition, meaning that it's a bird that we know is kosher, that it can't just have the signs, but it needs to be that Jews have been eating it for generations. It's part of our tradition. Chicken, we know chicken is, everybody, you have a chicken soup. You have matzo balls with chicken schmaltz in the matzo balls. Chicken, something Jews have been eating for generations. Of course, we know the slav quail was already, that was a gift from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We know that there's a Masorah for quail. Duck, we know there's a Masorah for. Turkey, when did the turkey come onto the scene? So turkey is not indigenous to the Middle East. Where do we have turkeys from? So turkeys were discovered by, I believe, Christopher Columbus when he came to the New World in 1492. So arguably, aside for the greatness of his discovery of America, or the South America and ultimately North America, but maybe depending on who you ask, perhaps just as important, he discovered the turkey, and he brought the turkey back with him to Europe, and that is how turkey came onto the scene. No one had seen this bird before. So they examined the bird, and they saw that it had met all the criteria that the Mishnah lists as to whether or not it's a kosher bird, but no one's been eating it. There is no Masorah for it. So this turned into a huge controversy at the time. And in fact, the Shlah, Rabbi Horowitz, Halevi, he was a Levi. So any Horowitz last name with any Levi with the last name Horowitz, or Horowitz who is a Levi, very often they have lineage that goes back to the Shlah, the Shnei Luchos Habris. So the Shlah was vehemently against anyone eating turkey. He thought that turkey was completely treif. You can't eat turkey. There's no Masorah for turkey. There's no tradition for turkey. You can't eat turkey. So there's a Rebbe in YU. His name is Rabbi David Horowitz, who is a descendant of the Shlah, and he says that he has relatives of his who being that they are descendants of the Shla, so out of respect for the Alter Zeda, they won't eat turkey, but they'll eat chazer on Yom Kippur. But but turkey they won't touch. So the Shla and other poskim were very machmir. I mean, the Ramah quotes Rashi. The Ramah is machmir that it needs to have a Masorah. Now, the question becomes whether or not a Masorah is able to be attained, meaning every tradition has a starting point, right? So even the chicken, right, at some point, even though the Torah says, you bring an oaf as a carbon, right? At some point, there was a tradition that began somewhere when we started eating duck, and when we started eating chicken, and when we started eating quail, and when we started eating different types of birds. There was a Masorah that started somewhere. So can Masorah start? Can one start? So this is a whole discussion in the Chayei Adam and the Shach. Ultimately, at this point, most poskim are of the opinion that turkey is completely 100% okay. That's why it has all the hechsherim from all the big kosher organizations. You're not going to find a kosher organization that's against turkey. I think Israel is one of the highest world consumers of turkey all over the world, because although in 1492, okay, it was a new item at the time, but we've been studying and examining we know everything about the turkey at this point. There's no doubt that the turkey is not going to be kosher. That's why there was a necessity for a Masorah. The Gemara talks about that. There was talks about a similar type of scenario. There was a new bird that came onto the scene, and they examined it, and they noticed that it checked out and all of the kosher symbols, all the kosher signs. But then they started eating it, and then later they realized they made a mistake, and that was why Rashi said, okay, then you need to have a Masorah. At this point, there's no mistakes that are going to happen about the turkey. We know everything about the turkey, and therefore at this point, all of the poskim say there's no problem with eating turkey. With that said, there are a number of big gedolim that are machmer not to eat turkey. I learned this the hard way because I was once visiting Rabbi Schechter in the summer in his home in Tannersville, and I was there with a group from a learning group in a summer learning group in Camp Masorah. So we went to go visit Rabbi Schechter, and we brought lunch with us. We brought deli and challah, and to have a nice meal. And so I prepared Rabbi Schechter lunch, and I put onto his plate. I made him a turkey sandwich. I assumed he would want the healthier option of all the available meats. So I made him a turkey sandwich. So I served it to him, and he explained to me that he doesn't eat turkey. So I asked him why, and so he told me all of this. So he himself is machmer not to eat turkey, but he's the one that gives the hechsher for the OU. Of course, there's nothing wrong with eating turkey. Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky didn't eat turkey. Many poskim didn't eat turkey, but ultimately, there's certainly nothing to be worried about. And I hope that if you did eat turkey today, I hope you enjoyed it. And you should go to sleep comfortably tonight knowing that you had kosher turkey, and that in Mitzvah Hashem tomorrow, when you have your turkey leftovers, you could eat that comfortably knowing that it's kosher turkey leftovers. Okay, we'll stop here for now. I wish everyone a beautiful Shabbos. And if I'm going to be seeing you over Shabbos, look forward to it. And if I'm not going to be seeing you over Shabbos, look forward to when, God willing, we'll be able to see each other for Shabbos again soon. We'll stop here.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
I have a joke about the turkey. If you make a turkey for Thanksgiving, because it's always a Thursday, then you can also serve turkey and Shabbos. You can kill 2 meals with 1 bird.
Very good. Well, that's the joke about the difference between a yeshiva, a single yeshiva guy and a married guy. A single yeshiva guy has cholent on Thursday nights. Yeshivas often will serve cholent on Thursday night. So Thursday night, Friday night, and Shabbos day. A newly married guy has cholent on Friday night, Shabbos day, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Very good.
Thank
All
you.
right. Good Shabbos, everyone.
Thank you,
Great.
Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Bye.
Hi, Daniel.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Jack.
Bye, Jack.
Get on.
Bye.
Bye, Mary.